Anime is one of my favorite forms of entertainment these days. It's a type of media that can accurately portray the unrealistic and crazy. It seems like I'm looking into someone's imagination and fully seeing what they are. Not a description that lacks any image or a picture that lacks context. It's the full analysis of what is inside someone's imagination. Other forms of media have the capability of doing similar things, but something is missing. Live action is limited by reality. Some things can never be portrayed properly. Cartoons are too focused on appealing to anyone below age 15 to actually try anything interesting. But anime, it just seems like there's no limit. Imagination runs wild, and that 24-minute runtime is the only thing stopping you from fully realizing that imagination. It is the fantastic born from creativity. It is the unrealistic born from artwork. So anyways, I'm obsessed with a dragon in a maid costume. Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is a slice-of-life show about a dragon who is a maid. But it actually depicts the life of a dragon who is paying back a debt to a regular office worker. And the way she is doing it is by being a maid. And that's really all there is to it. The plot doesn't take many drastic turns, no major flashbacks to really important and boring backstories. Just a dragon who is working as a maid and the human friends and dragon companions that are met along the way. But it ended up being the second most watched show and the fourth rated in a season with over 207 different anime. It's a dragon in a maid costume. How could it be so highly rated? The slice of life genre has always been a little confusing to me because it bases its enjoyment on things that happen in real life. It is literally a slice of real life. Be it music clubs, high school romances, or even figure skating, I always thought the real-life counterparts to these things were just better. Have you ever heard of the Nancy Kerrigan incident? That's more interesting than anything Yuri on Ice did. So when I hear the elevator pitch about a dragon who turns into a maid and lives in a small apartment, I try to get off at the next floor. Reading the synopsis for this anime really did not give me much hope for the show I was about to watch. It seemed like a maid slice-of-life show with a gimmick, and it totally is, but it is totally not. I think that the idea this show is simple isn't too far off of what it actually is. The description, "it's a show about a dragon maid," hits the nail on the head. But I think it's that simplicity that also makes this show great. When you have shows like That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime and, after being rejected, I Shaved and Took in a High School Runaway, yes, that is the name of the show, the shows will often tunnel themselves into focusing on one plot point, and then never really stepping outside of it. Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is on the opposite end of that scale, where the plot can go absolutely anywhere it wants to, as long as it confines to Kobayashi having a dragon maid. Sure, why not have a beach episode? Fight scene between two dragons? Fits right in. You see something similar in a lot of Western cartoons and TV shows, where there's a set of characters that have some connection, put into different situations each episode. It's simply called a situational comedy, or sitcom for short. You've probably heard about it. The genre is so simple, but that gives the writer creative freedom to take that plot wherever they want it to go. Simplicity creates opportunity. Which is the reason that you will never get sick of binging these episodes, as each episode you get is something a little different. Like one character over another? Well, they'll show up at some time this episode, don't worry. Not too interested in this plot point? Give it an episode, it'll be over by then. The sitcom genre lives and dies by the characters that appear in the show, and how they interact with some of the other characters. So, as a writer, you have to create very interesting and unique characters. The array of different personalities and visuals that are represented in Kobayashi's Dragon Maid means that you don't really have any samey characters, and because each character is so different from one another, it doesn't exactly feel like you can see these interactions anywhere else. That's for good reason, too. Half of the main characters are either ancient dragons that have been alive for many years in a distant world much different to Earth, or magicians that hide their abilities from the world. So the conversations and situations that you see these characters in only goes to help the unique quality of this show. While Kobayashi could be considered a very boring and surface-level character, it is her wacky interactions with Toru that creates some comedy. What would happen if a regular office worker were to fly to work on a dragon? Or if that office worker were to start being a caretaker for a small dragon who is potentially hundreds of years older than she is? You see, while Kobayashi may not be the most interesting character, she's the only one that grounds us as viewers to this reality. So while Kobayashi is yelling at Toru because humans don't eat dragon meat, you can kinda see where she's coming from, or can even see yourself doing that exact same thing. And that derives from how the show is both a slice of life and reverse isekai. Fantasy shows are meant to tell an amazing story in a fantastical world, but there is nothing that you can really relate to because of that fantastic world. The isekai genre tries to fix this by putting real-life, believable characters into a fantasy setting, but this meant that one single character had to be relatable to the over 100,000, sometimes millions of people watching that show. Not really applicable unless the character you create is a lifeless, personality-less character that says a cool line and does a cool thing once in a while. Thus comes the reverse isekai genre, the vastly superior version of isekai. When you bring characters from a fantasy world into the real world, there are a lot of expectations that should be met. This fantasy character has to adjust to the life of living in a highly advanced and scientific world. There are laws and social norms that must be kept, especially in a very traditional country like Japan. So when these fantasy creatures come on over, there is a lot that they need to adjust to in order to live an ordinary life, or at least as close to one as they can get. It is those kinds of interactions that people watching the show will gravitate to when you first turn it on. Seeing a dragon learn about the overworking problem that is plaguing Japan, or watching a businessman otaku try to take in and become friends with a human-hating demon dragon is just so interesting. And that is all just in the first few episodes. The amount of content that they could make just with the characters in different situations is boundless. And that's just the nature of the sitcom. They are meant to go on for a very long time. But this is an anime, which is a very large gap from the Western sitcom or any live-action sitcom. I've raved about how simple Dragon Maid is, and how that quality creates a lot of opportunities to create comedy or other emotions. But that really only applies to the first season of the show. Throughout that season, you hear a few basic things about the plot and the characters. You know that Toru is a part of the Chaos faction, and it is in her nature that she hates humans. You get to know that Elma is of the Harmony faction, who is bent on stopping the Chaos faction from destroying the human race. But other than that, there isn't much plot. There is a very soft spot in my heart for the first season of Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. They really hooked me with good characters, great writing, and amazing comedy. So when the second season was announced, I was expecting to get much of the same thing. And you get all of that, and much, much more. You see, I can't talk about the second season without mentioning what its creators had to go through to get to that place. Kyoto Animation took a big hit from an arson attack in July of 2019, killing 36 people, injuring another 33. The company needed to take some time to recuperate and mourn the loss of those who tragically lost their lives on that day. It took Kyoto Animations a while to get back under their feet. After losing most of their material and almost all of their electronics, they needed it. But with 2 years to train new employees, allowing the injured time to rest, and a small little pandemic we know and love, it was time for them to come back. Boy, did they come back. From a studio known for their beautiful animation and stunning composition came the most beautiful and most stunning animation that has ever come from a slice of life anime. They had strutted their stuff with the first season, showing what two dragons fighting could look like. But this season, they take it to a whole new level. Not only stunning visuals depicting magic dragon moves and unbelievable feats of strength, but also well choreographed hand-to-hand combat. This was a show about a dragon becoming a cute maid that takes care of an overworking office lady, and now there are two dragons fighting because of dragon ideals? What happened to Elma being a food-loving dragon? Or Kana's adaptation to regular school life and creating relationships? Who's that guy? Wait, Elma and Tora used to be traveling partners? I love these characters. I love the interactions that they have with each other. I love watching these characters meet new people. I love the faction system and the dynamic it creates with the dragons, and I also love how different the dragons can be. I fell in love with this show. I wanted to see the fantastic adventures they would have and the interesting people that they would meet along the way. And it is all there. You get to meet new characters and see the same old characters interact with each other. But you also get to see a side of returning characters that you never got to see before. You get to see what truly drives some characters, and what brought upon those ideals. There are moments you can tell that this show ain't all sunshines and rainbows. There is a whole other world that is at war, and they are not afraid to remind you of it. I said a bit earlier that I went into the second season expecting much of the same comedy and laughs, and I did get those laughs, but they were placed in between episodes dedicated to character development and plot. I got hooked on the first season, but I got reeled into the second, and loved every second of it. My name is Zulu, but you'll remember me as a random guy on the internet. Thank you for sticking with me. See ya.